negatively or positively, where I wouldn't be on the independents or whatever. I would want people to always know that I was a hard worker and that I didn't slack.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what, you've had you've won 2 tournaments this year. You got a number 2 ranking from winning the GPW Together We Fight tournament earlier this year, and then the Cheyenne tournament or Nova tournament last weekend. So talk about, how did you took? Now, if I'm not mistaken, you were off this past weekend, or am I incorrect in that?
No, I was off.
Did you need the time, or would you have been ready to go again? Because, 4 matches, every one of them pretty grueling as far as I could tell. And, again, you and I aren't sure if this is the actual stat or not, but 4 matches in a weekend we think is probably your most, right?
Yeah, probably so. But, I probably didn't. Okay, physically, maybe I might have needed the time, but I didn't feel it. I like to take a weekend off every now and then because I do like to spend time with my family, and, my brother is really important in my life. And this past weekend was the first time I've got to spend time with my brother in probably a good 2 months. So it's needed. It's necessary for those types of things in my life.
Is it harder to find those weekends now that that your name's getting out there more and more, and you're probably more in demand with a lot of promotions down there?
It is, because any weekend that I have off, I'm with my brother, and it's so hard to be able to see him that it's very stressful, because it's like, I've got this little boy calling me like every other day. It's like, hey, when can I come over? When can you come see me? And it's like, oh, well, I've got a show this weekend. I've got a show, and I love the shows, and I love getting work and getting out there and, wrestling, because, if I did 2 weekends back to back, I wouldn't know what to do with myself. But it's hard. But I was actually supposed to work last weekend. I was supposed to be in Ohio, but that kind of fell apart because the guy promoting the show just never got in contact back with me, and it was a really weird situation, actually. So I just didn't go. But yeah, yeah.
Well, that's wrestling for you. There's always that random promotion where you get the weird crap going on. But, that's at least you got a weekend off. You got to spend time with him. Can you talk a little bit more about that? You've mentioned it several times on here, and I just wanted to kind of get into it for the people that maybe weren't familiar with how close you are with your brother. I know that you actually, became interested in wrestling because of him and an Undertaker figure that he had gotten, and, an obsession with pirates. Tell that story.
Yeah, so my brother's, he's autistic, and he also, he had OCD. So he, when he found something that he liked, he was very compulsive about it and had to have it. And he was like obsessed with pirates a few years back, several years back now. And, he found the Undertaker figure, and he thought it was a pirate, didn't know anything about wrestling, and I had to do my research, and, I went out, bought DVD sets, and we watched Undertaker as well as other wrestling religiously for a couple years. And then he had his birthday party at a show, like a little independent promotion in Georgia, and I started training, and, that was it.
So, a lot of times people with autism, they have issues with going to shows. Now, I know multiple people with autism that go to wrestling shows around here, and, sometimes they'll have to bring headphones or whatever it may be to help them get through the experience. How does he do? Is it tough for him, or does he know how to, or do you all know how to work around it?
I think, my parents actually took him, the first time he ever went to a show, I actually stayed home with my granny, so I didn't actually see, but they told me that he had a hard time at his very first one, but he was, he's very young. He's probably 3 or 4 years old, I think, maybe 5. But past that first time, I think he understood, like, hey, this is what it is. Which now, it's harder now that I wrestle, because when it comes time for me to go in the locker room, he kind of just hangs out, you know. He'll usually find somebody to, like, hang out with, either, like, the lady that does photography here in Georgia, her son, or, you know, whatever. But it's sad because I'll like sit and watch from the locker room, this little mopey kid just waiting on me to come out. But no, he does well with it. He'll be 10 pretty soon, so I mean, I guess that came with getting older, because he does have, I think his sensory issues kind of got overgrown by his, like, missing me being around kind of thing, because he gets really, like, antsy whenever I have to go to the locker room and tell him, okay, I'll be out when I'm done.
Yeah, I can understand that. And then, you know, one of the things that I was thinking about is how much perceptions have changed of autism. You know, I mean, he's going to be 10, right? And even over the last 5 years or so, I'd say people have become more sensitive and understanding of autism. And I mean, you're obviously clearly really, really close with him. Can you talk a little bit about that? I know we're getting off the beaten path of wrestling, but sometimes it's good to talk about real life. Can you talk a little bit about how perceptions have changed and people are taking this more seriously? Because, you know, even 20 years ago, people would have acted like, oh, well, you know, you just would have you just spank your kid more or something stupid like that, you know?
Mhm. Well, when he was younger, I would say from the age of, like, when we found out that he was autistic, I think when he was about 2, like 2.5, 3. And whenever we found out, we had to get business cards printed out that said, basically, my child has autism, so spare me your dirty looks. We are doing our best. And, well, it didn't say that exactly, but it was basically something like that, because my brother, you know, would either, whether it was just a sensory issue or some kind of, you know, compulsion, like, he would just, you know, have these little fits from time to time, and they weren't really fixable. You kind of just had to calm him down the best you could, and people would give us, you know, horrible, dirty looks, and they would say stuff to us, and, you know, basically just think that, you know, my mom and dad were just bad parents, or that I was just a bad sister, or whatever it was, and we would have to hand people these business cards just to, you know, make them look the other way. And, you know, now it's a little easier, because, I mean, now he's older, and, you know, obviously he's not, you know, a little baby that's crying and throwing fits, but he still has his moments, which, you know, now he's, I think, a little easier, because, like, out of everybody in my family, including both my parents and my grandparents, I've always been the only person that can really get through to him when the bad moments come, and I'm the only one that can really bring him out of that. So, you know, nowadays I think it's a little easier and stuff. But
Well, I mean this in a positive way, but you're a different kind of person. You know what I mean? You don't fit in with the crowd, and do you think maybe that's why, you know, he connects to you in the way that he does?
Maybe so. I've just, when I want to, and this is gonna kind of sound crazy, seeing as how I'm an insane person in the ring. When I want to, I can really be a calming person, or at least with him, I can be a really calming person, and I think that's part of it. Is I've always been the one that's patient with him over everybody, but also it's a big part of, you know, he looks up to me, and he thinks that I'm cool, I guess, because he, you know, like, I grew up on a lot of bands and whatnot, and now he's, you know, he's wanting me to buy him, you know, band shirts, and, you know, he wants to dress, like, all in black, and he wants to be like his big sister, and I think it's adorable. And we literally went out this past weekend, and he wanted us to get him a My Chemical Romance t-shirt and a backpack, and it's, you know, it's right around, it's a little younger, about his age, so when I started getting into all that stuff myself, so to see him basically become a little boy version of me it's heartwarming.
So what does he say about you wrestling, aside from, you know, just it's got to be really cool, but at the same time, can you tell me, like, specific things he says to you, after you wrestle, or if he gets to watch your matches type of thing?
Well, now his big thing is he'll tell me before I come out if he's at a show with me. He'll be like, "Hey, can you give me a hug when you come out?" And I'm like, "All right." And I break this crazy, sexual character to give my little brother a hug, and that's fine. But he's encouraging most of the time. There's actually footage somewhere on YouTube where a friend of mine was sitting next to my brother in the bleachers during it was I think a UIW show, and I was actually wrestling Kimberly, and you can hear my brother just trash talking me the whole time, because somebody in the crowd had said, "Oh, she's so pretty," and then my brother, you can hear him going, "You should see her in the morning. She's awful." So, I mean, he's got attitude, but I mean, at the end of the day, he supports me, and if he thinks I'm hurt, I mean, I was maybe 2 matches in, and I was working an AWE show, and I had took a lariat from my trainer, Murder One, in the show, and Chip Day had carried me to the back. I think, if I remember that correctly. Somebody carried me to the back, and I'm obviously, unconscious, and my arm is dangling down, and I just feel this tiny little clammy hand grab mine and follow me to the back. And I guess it was him, because he, was checking on me, but he's always there, if I'm hurt or anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's got to be good to have that kind of support system, I mean, even if it's from a 10-year-old boy, you know what I mean? Just the fact that somebody cares what's going on outside of just the character.
Yeah.
Okay, so you brought it up, and I know you probably talk about it in every single interview you get into, but I'm just, okay, so the sexuality wouldn't have been a big deal 7-10 years ago. I mean, because that's what women's wrestling was about at the time. Now, the line's blurred a little bit. Sometimes it's people are weird about showing their sexuality. I don't see a problem with it at all, because it only makes sense to me. If you're trying to get people to watch something, you use everything at your disposal that, within reason, and you use your sexuality. Nothing wrong with that at all. But, again, we're in two things. We're in a different society than we were maybe 10 years ago. We're in a different business than we were 10 years ago. I mean, what's that been like as far as the business goes? Do you get the people that think you're going over the line with the stuff you're doing? I mean, you are kind of wrestling in the Bible Belt, so I was just curious. There's some people that love it, and there's some people that hate it. I don't necessarily do it, or I try not to, in a way that it's "Oh, look at my boobs, look at my butt, I'm so hot, don't you want to go home and think about me in bed?" It's not like that. It's more meant to be uncomfortable. It's meant to get under people's skin and in their heads, and, it's meant to be a little messed up and twisted in a way, rather than, a porn star type of sexuality. You know what I'm saying? So, I think a lot of people don't quite understand that, but that's okay. It's not really meant to be understood. It's just meant to make you go, what in the world? But yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't like it. When I first started at Shine, I kind of I didn't ask, and I just, it was probably bad, but I kind of just went out there and just did my thing, and I would get third-party comments back from people in WWN, and they would be like, "What in the hell is that girl doing?" Because there would be GIFs put out of me licking somebody or grinding on somebody, and it obviously would get back to Gabe or Sal, and they would just be like, "All right." And I haven't been told to stop, but it's one of those things where they always have something funny to say every time they see me, it seems. I'm curious to, like, okay, fans' reactions, and I don't mean the usual fans that you'll see at Evolve or AWE. I'm talking about, like, women's wrestling fans, because women's wrestling fans are a different breed